Evening, Patriots. So, in the latest debacle from Washington, D.C., Joe Biden has decided to take executive action against guns. He's going to sign an executive order as it pertains to gun control, which is entirely illegal and does absolutely nothing at all to help what he perceives as a gun problem. Let's take a look.
But let's be clear, none of this absolves Congress the responsibility from the responsibility of acting to pass universal background checks, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability.
But with that lack of action from Congress, local officials are left preparing for the next mass shooting. Josh Campbell is out front.
Shots fired midday on a California college campus. The start of a rampage by an active shooter. As students and teachers flee for safety, responding officers engage the gunman, following him into the school library. Police resources flood the campus. By air and ground, specially trained SWAT officers begin arriving on scene. Then the tactical teams move in. An officer radios that the threat has been neutralized, but the work is far from over. A cavalry of firefighters and paramedics staging nearby rush in to triage and administer first aid. This is only an exercise. An empty college campus on spring break turned into a simulated war zone as police and first responders hone their life-saving skills. This type of training has become the new normal in an age of endless mass shootings in the United States.
We study them, we read about them, and we learn what went well and what didn't.
LA Sheriff Robert Luna says continually planning for a mass attack is a reality for law enforcement, in part due to inaction in Washington to regulate dangerous weapons.
We do challenge our leaders at a national level to do more about guns, to do more about mental health, so that we don't have to do this over and over.
It's a sentiment that has been heard from police leaders across the country.
We're outgunned, we're outmanned, we're outstaffed. We do need responsible gun legislation.
A rare moment of bipartisan action did follow the tragic shootings last year at a supermarket in Buffalo and at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, when 15 Senate Republicans and 14 in the House voted to support legislation expanding some gun background checks and dedicating millions to public safety programs. But other measures pressed for by gun safety advocates remain perpetually stalled, including national red flag laws, universal background checks, and an assault weapons ban. Many in law enforcement have long been advocating for the ban, including the International Association of Chiefs of Police, who say the criminal use of semi-automatic assault weapons pose a grave risk to our officers and the communities they are sworn to protect. A group representing college campus officers also supports a ban on military-style assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines for civilian use. President Joe Biden reiterated his calls for gun reform during a visit Tuesday near the scene of January's mass shooting in Monterey Park, California, where a gunman slaughtered 11 before taking his own life.
I'm determined, once again, to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Let's finish the job. Ban assault weapons, ban them again, do it now. Enough, do something.
But with major reform legislation on hold, it remains up to the police to continually prepare for the day they may have to risk their own lives to stop a gunman.
We don't want it to happen. Statistics tell us it will happen, but here we sit, ready to respond to anything that may come our way, anywhere we're called.
And Aaron, as the president announced his new...
Okay, so that was a CNN report, which was just completely dramatized. Now, listen, mass shootings happen. They're tragic. They're awful. I wish they did not happen, and I don't think anybody in this country wants them to happen, right? But, you know, a gun ban is not going to stop mass shootings. You know, banning drugs does not stop drug addicts. They're going to get the drugs. There's over 70 million firearms in this country. They're already out there. They've already been produced. They're already in circulation. Banning guns is not going to magically allow them to disappear. Banning assault weapons is not going to allow them to magically disappear, if you want to call it assault weapon and not a rifle. However, but this is a dialogue we've seen from Joe Biden since basically his entire career. Whenever it suits his politics, we see him the same exact narrative. Ban assault weapons now. Ban high capacity magazines now. And that's really the only thing he has to contribute to the conversation. But him signing an executive order, it does not circumvent the Constitution of the United States. The Supreme Court has ruled again and again and again and again that the Second Amendment is an individual right. It's not a right of a militia. A well-regulated means in good working order. It does not mean to be regulated by the federal government. If it was meant to be under regulation and rule by the federal government, it would have been listed in Article 1, not the Bill of Rights, which is the Bill of individual rights. The freedom of speech, to worship, to assemble, to be a journalist and report, the press. These are individual rights listed in all 10 amendments of the Constitution. Now, Joe Biden thinks this highly of himself. We saw this with COVID. We saw this through the entire pandemic, that the federal government will use any and all power to assert its authority on its citizens. But the federal government does not have this authority. The President of the United States is not a king. The President of the United States is not a monarch. He cannot sign law. He cannot sign legislation. Executive orders are not meant to make law and rule over people at the whim of the president's emotion. If that were the case, he could write any law he wants. He could make it illegal for you to have a television through executive order. There are certain rights that we possess as human beings that are inalienable, that nobody can touch or take away. The right to bear arms is one of them. The spirit of the right to bear arms in the Second Amendment through James Madison was for the people to protect themselves from a tyrannical government. Whether it was a foreign invasion or if our own government became tyrannical. That's the spirit of the Second Amendment. That's what's listed in the Declaration of Independence. Now, obviously, I'm not advocating for any violence. I never have, never will. You know, we live in a system where we're fortunate enough to where we can make changes in politicians through voting, right? We could change the whole thing out if everybody would get on the same page. We could. But it's hilarious that the current president of the United States feels that he has the power to legislate law by signing papers. You know, an executive order has been a problem for a long time. Donald Trump signed a lot of executive orders. You know, Barack Obama, George Bush. But to sign an executive order that directly violates a constitutional right is unbecoming. And I hope the American people understand this and learn from this and remember this in 2024. Forget if you're a proponent of the Second Amendment or not. Forget about that. Do you feel, if you're not a proponent of the Second Amendment and you are a proponent of abortion, should the president be able to legislate regulation on abortion? Flip the script on yourself and see if the shoe fits. This is Ryan Samuels. This has been the Ryan Samuels Show. We're going to keep it short and simple tonight. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Watch us on Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday night on Facebook. And we